He'd passed the pen like it belonged to him. I'm Donna Rios, 33, architect, debt-free, and the one who paid off the land they buried her on. The lawyer didn't flinch when he slid the paperwork across the table, just tapped it once and said, "You're not named, but we still need your signature." My brother didn't look at me. He just fixed his cufflink and cleared his throat like I was staph. I remember the faint citrus of her perfume still clinging to the legal envelope. I didn't ask a single question. I just signed. Ever been thanked for your sacrifice? Right before they made it permanent? They'd already started when I walked in. The room smelled like cologne and paper, fresh coffee on polished wood, and not one empty seat. Julian didn't even glance up, just a flick of his wrist, like he was adjusting his watch, not watching me stand there, holding my coat and a question I didn't know how to ask. I didn't ask anything. I stayed standing. My mother's lawyer cleared his throat as if I'd interrupted something sacred. His tie matched his voice, tight, colorless. "We'll begin." Eh? Begin. They were halfway through. Julian sat at the head of the table, hands folded neatly like he was born there, 2 cousins beside him, an aunt I hadn't heard from in months, all of them seated. All of them are silent. And me? I stood. He read it like a recipe. No softness, no hesitation. Her jewelry to Aunt Marla. The savings account to Julian. The house. Fully transferred to Julian Rios as executor and sole inheritor of the estate. No mention of me. None. Just a sentence. Dry, brutal, final. She wanted things clean, the lawyer added, like he was excusing a stain on the carpet. My breath caught. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I did. I remembered the day I signed the last check. Mortgage paid, title cleared, Mom in the living room coughing through a blanket that swallowed her whole. Julian hadn't been there then. Said the flights were too expensive. Said the meetings were too important. But now, he was here. Cuffed sleeves, fresh haircut, like this was his boardroom. I scanned the room, slow. Nobody looked at me. Not directly. I think that hurt more than the words. The way their eyes dipped, darted, pretended to find something fascinating in the grain of the table. The chair I almost reached for? Julian's coat was draped over it. I stood the whole time. The papers rustled. A pen clicked. My heart did neither. I waited for someone, anyone, to speak, to question it, to say my name, even by mistake. No one did. She wanted things clean. That line repeated in my head like static. Cold, sharp, rehearsed. I stared at Julian. He didn't flinch. Didn't say a word. Didn't even nod. Just kept his hands folded while they erased me with ink. And I let them. Because what else do you do when they make sure the only chair left isn't yours? I didn't say a word, but I watched where every eye refused to meet mine. The gravel cracked beneath my boots like it was remembering me. I hadn't walked this land since the funeral. Couldn't. Every step felt like betrayal. Or maybe it just reminded me how much of myself I left here. The house looked the same on the outside. I still needed a paint job. Still leaned a little to the left like it was tired from holding so much. But everything else felt wrong. Too quiet, like the walls were holding their breath. I paused on the porch. My fingers touched the banister. Rough, splintered. I remember sanding that down one summer while Mom slept with a cold cloth on her forehead. Julian never showed up that day. Said traffic was bad. Said maybe I cared too much about old things. He never saw this place as anything more than a property line. I did. Because it was never just land. It was her last request. "Just keep the house," she whispered once, eyes half closed, voice thin. "Don't let it end up in someone else's hands." And I hadn't. Not then. I signed the deed with her coughing in the next room, chest rattling like the walls in a storm. I made that last payment by skipping heat for 2 winters, by selling every sketch I could. 1-bedroom apartments, storefront facades, even a mini library I designed for free just to get my name out. Julian hadn't even seen the final papers. Didn't ask. I didn't care. But now he stood by the oak tree she wanted to be buried near, in a clean coat, nodding like a man who earned his view. A stranger in loafers stood beside him with a leather folder and designer sunglasses. I watched from behind the fence. Neither of them noticed. He pointed once toward the garden. then again toward the old shed. A layout, a pitch, a sail. I leaned forward, breathing slow, eyes narrowed. My body didn't move, but something inside me started to. The yard I replanted after that flood, the soil I turned with my bare hands while she slept on morphine. He was drawing imaginary blueprints on top of it. And the worst part? I don't think he even thought of me. Not as an obstacle, not even as a memory. Just the girl who made the final payment, so he could inherit clean. I stepped back slowly, like the ground might scream if I moved too fast. This wasn't grief anymore. It was something colder. That land swallowed more than roots. It kept secrets with teeth. The pen was already on the table when I walked in. Black, heavy, still warm from someone else's hand. I didn't sit. The leather chair across from Julian creaked as I touched it. Then I let go. Some part of me didn't want to leave an imprint. The lawyer barely looked up. He wore the same kind of suit I used to sketch for office parks. Streamlined, forgettable, built for people who never blink when they say things like, "This is standard procedure." He slid a folder toward me. Julian stayed silent, flipping his phone over and over in his palm. That stupid little rhythm he did when he didn't want to make eye contact. Tap, turn, tap, turn. "Just a quick signature," the lawyer said. "Nothing's changing. This is just to finalize the transfer. For taxes." "Nothing's changing?" I glanced down at the document. My name was on the line. Not in the content, just on the signature page, like a witness to my own erasure. They'd typed everything already. All that was left was my agreement to it. I thought of Mom's voice the night I signed the deed. Raspy, tired, but proud. "You did good, baby. You kept the roof." She thought that meant something. So did I. My hands were steady. Too steady. Julian finally spoke. "It's really just a formality." He said it like someone saying, "It's just dinner." Like none of it mattered. Like I hadn't built a life on sacrifice. I looked at him. Still wouldn't meet my eyes. I wanted to ask, did she know? That I was the one paying bills while he updated his Instagram with rooftop drinks. That she was buried on land I paid off while he bought a new car. But I didn't ask, because I already knew. Instead, I picked up the pen. It was heavier than it looked, like it knew what it was about to do. I signed. One slow line, a signature I'd once practiced for business deals and blueprints, now reduced to a formality. Julian gave a tight nod. Didn't say thanks. The lawyer gathered the papers like I was no longer in the room. I stayed standing. The air in that office was still, stale, but I could smell the ink on my fingers. That was the moment it became real. Not the will, not the reading, not even the empty chair. It was this. The sound of a pen scratching my name into a silence they'd already planned. They needed my signature, but not my name. It was still hanging in the back of my closet, pressed, untouched, still wrapped in its clear garment bag like it was waiting for permission to be needed. The tag was stiff when I touched it. $89. Simple, black, sleeveless, clean lines. I remember thinking, she'd like that. Mom never liked lace or frills. She always said, keep it plain. Let your words be the drama. But I never wore it. I bought it on the layover. The plane had been delayed in Denver, and I remember standing under those cold department store lights, trying to pick something that said respectful instead of my late daughter. By the time I landed, the service was over. Julian didn't wait, didn't call, just sent a single text. It's done. She wanted it small. Small. I'd offered to plan it, send money, even booked a caterer she once liked for her book club days, those lemon bars she used to sneak for breakfast. Julian canceled it, said he kept it intimate. But what he meant was private, as in, without me. I remember walking into the house that day, still wearing my travel jeans and tired eyes, and seeing the leftover lilies in the trash. No folded programs, no framed photo, just one candle, half burnt, and Julian telling me there was nothing else to do. No seat saved, no speech, no moment, just silence. And now, here I was, 3 months later, staring at this dress like it could still serve a purpose. I unzipped the bag slowly. The plastic crinkled sharp and too loud in the quiet of my apartment. The fabric was cool, smooth, I held it up to the light, and for a second, I imagined wearing it. Not to a funeral, but to confront him, to make him see what he erased. But I didn't move, just stood there, holding a dress no one ever saw for a woman who never got to say goodbye. And maybe that's what haunted me most. It wasn't that I missed her, it was that she left thinking I didn't care. Julian rewrote the ending, and I let him, not because I wanted to, but because no one told me the story had already ended. I placed the dress back in the bag, hang it carefully. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because throwing it away would make it real, or maybe because some part of me still believed I'd get the moment back. I won't. I wasn't late. I was excluded. The laughter hit me before I even reached the porch. Warm, practiced. That kind of easy, upper-middle-class joy you hear in magazine ads. Low balls clinking, leather loafers crossing at the ankle. Everything polished and polite. Julian's world. He'd sent the invite 3 days prior, like a PR firm. Dinner with a few close friends. Would be great if you came. I hadn't seen the inside of the house in months. Same kitchen tiles I'd scrubbed clean with vinegar while Mom coughed in the other room. Same backyard I re-fenced after the storm with my own damn savings. But none of that history was in the air tonight. Julian had sanded it all down into something unrecognizable. "Dana!" he called, walking over with a wine glass in hand, wearing that politician smile he saves for moments he wants control without seeming like he does. "Come meet the team." Team. He never introduced me as family. "Everyone, this is Dana. She really helped out during a tough time." Helped out. I nodded like that didn't slice. The woman beside him smiled, toothy, polite. "Oh, were you one of the nurses?" My throat closed around the laugh I didn't let out. "No," I said softly. "Just her daughter." Julian coughed into his glass. Someone changed the subject. I stood there with a glass of red I never took a sip from. He walked me through the living room, name-dropping people I barely knew. Investor in the renovation, handled the legal side, old friend from Stanford. Everyone with a title, except me. I glanced at the fireplace mantel. No photo of Mom, just curated art now. Gray and gold and clean. They'd cleared the memory out like clutter. The dining table was long, heavy oak. Julian tapped the back of a chair. "Sit here, Dana. This one's yours." It wasn't. It never had been. That spot used to belong to Mom. She used to rest her tea there while I sketched plans for a side project she didn't fully understand, but always encouraged anyway. "Make things beautiful," she'd say. I looked down at my half-full wine glass, still untouched. I didn't need more wine. I needed history to matter. He never said the words outright. You didn't count, but he didn't have to. It was in the way he skipped over our story, rearranged it for applause. In this version, I wasn't the daughter. I wasn't the one who kept the lights on. I was the helper, disposable, peripheral. As if I'd rung the doorbell one day and asked if they needed anything. As if I wasn't born here. As if blood was optional. I stayed quiet the whole meal, smiled at the right beats, laughed once, even offered to pour wine. Because sometimes survival means playing the part they've written for you, long enough to rewrite it later. That night, I smiled like the stranger they hoped I'd become. I saw it before I was meant to. A corner of blue peeking out from Julian's briefcase. Crisp and too familiar, like hearing your own voice in someone else's mouth. We were in the office conference room. Some mid-tier developer Julian had partnered with was running through the project overview on a mounted screen. I wasn't supposed to be part of the meeting. I was just dropping by. That's what he told them. But then I saw it. Projection clicked next slide. And there it was. My layout. My lines. Even the dotted curve I used when Mom's tremors kept her from walking straight across the porch, so I designed a roundabout walkway with 0 steps. I'd drawn that curve while she was asleep beside me. It wasn't just similar, it was mine. Down to the initials scrawled in the corner DR, barely scratched out. Julian's logo now sat at the top. Clean, centered, loud. I blinked. The men in suits kept talking. Something about acreage, zoning, a tax benefit from historical renovation. Julian smiled like he was born to wear betrayal like cologne. He caught me staring at the plans. His smile didn't drop, but his eyes warned me, don't make this a thing. I felt the flush rise up my chest. I had emailed him those drafts months ago, when I thought he might want my input, when I still thought family had rules, when I still thought blood meant respect. I hadn't even saved a copy for myself. I'd trusted him. And he branded me. Beautiful work, one of the investors said. Feels thoughtful, like someone lived it. Julian nodded. We're passionate about legacy. I sat down slowly. I didn't speak. I didn't interrupt. My hands rested on the table, palms flat the way they used to when Mom would run them over my blueprints, tracing dreams with trembling fingers. Julian handed the investor a mock-up folder. The corner of the page had been torn. That was where my initials used to be. My name wasn't on anything now. No credits, no mention, not even a thank you slide. And it hit me this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a campaign. Quiet, professional, strategic, a full erasure. Not just my presence, my work, my voice, my mind. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted to be me, without the burden of remembering who built what. That was the moment I stopped expecting fairness. I stopped hoping someone would step in and say, that's not right. Because they wouldn't. They never did. And Julian counted on that. They didn't just erase me, they printed over me. The voicemail had dust on it. Not real dust, digital dust. The kind that settles when you haven't touched a message in years, when grief makes you avoid the sound of a voice you can't answer back. It was buried in my old phone's archive. I only found it because my new one died, and I needed to charge it in the car. That phone, screen and all, powered on like it had something left to say. And it did. A whisper in the cave. I think you should just... Not Julian's, mine. The one in the room with the green curtains. I don't know how long I'll have, but I wanted to fix this. I froze. Her voice, wavering but clear, like she knew she wouldn't get another chance. The message ended before it said too much. Or maybe it said everything. I drove faster than I should have. Julian had locked up the main house, of course, but the side window, the one behind the rose bush, still slid open if you lifted it at the corner. I remembered because I was the one who fixed it for her, years ago after the lock broke. The green curtain room was cold. Dust had settled on her sewing machine. A spool of thread sat mid-stitch. I walked to the desk, not Julian's, hers. The top drawer was empty, neat, but the second one stuck. I had to jiggle it twice. Inside, beneath old greeting cards and a single dried camellia, was a manila envelope. No label, just folded, clean edges. I opened it slowly. Legal papers, amendment forms, to the will. My name, clear, slotted right where it should have been. To be granted equal inheritance and designation as co-owner of the estate upon my passing. But it was unsigned. No date, no attorney seal. My mother had started it but never finished. I don't know if she ran out of time, or if someone knew she did. And that's when I remembered something Julian said at the hospital, months before she passed. He had leaned close to her bed, tucking the covers just a little too tight. I thought he was sweet, but he whispered something I didn't understand then. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything, just rest. I used to think he meant her comfort. Now, I hear it differently. I sat there, staring at the covers. My hands trembled, but not from sadness, from clarity. This wasn't an oversight, it was a decision. And I was never meant to find it, but I had, and now I couldn't unhear her voice. Check the desk drawer, not Julian's. She wanted to fix it. He made sure she couldn't. The wind felt different that morning, sharper, like the air itself had caught on to the lie and didn't want to let it pass. I parked 2 blocks away. I walked slowly, hoodie up, sunglasses on. Not because I thought Julian would see me, but because I wanted to feel hidden, unseen for once, by choice. The lot stood quiet, except for the hum of a stalled excavator and a crew member pacing with a phone to his ear. The site was supposed to be bustling by now, foundation poured, walls going up, Julian gloating over it all like he laid the first brick himself. But instead, stapled to the gate like a scarlet letter was a laminated notice. Stop work order, issued by the Historical Preservation Board. I didn't need to get closer to read it. I wrote half the complaint myself. The house Julian was trying to tear down, it sat on land flagged in an old preservation map, tied to a pre-statehood structure. Our grandmother's root cellar, half buried under ivy, forgotten by most, not by me. Funny what you remember when your blood is boiling and you can't sleep. I found the archive folder at midnight, sent the anonymous report by 3 a.m. The permit stalled within a week. Then came the inspection, then the zoning freeze, then the investors. Those slick men with shiny watches and zero loyalty started to reassess. Julian's version of hell? Paperwork that wouldn't move, phones that wouldn't ring back, power with no outlet. I watched from the sidewalk as he pulled up in that two-white SUV, face red, tie loosened, barking into a headset that clearly wasn't solving anything. His posture looked thinner now, like the air around him had started to peel him back. He turned toward the gate, stared at the notice, didn't move for a full 10 seconds. I stood still. Part of me wanted to scream. That blueprint you stole had my name on it. Part of me wanted to cry. Mom tried to fix it and you locked the drawer. But most of me just stood there and let the silence hum. This wasn't revenge. This was math. You build a house on a lie, it falls. You build your fortune on someone else's back, they eventually stand up. Julian couldn't see me behind the tinted window of the hardware store across the street. But I saw everything. The clipboard slipped from his hand. The contractor shook his head. The developer's car pulled away, but Julian could wave him down. I exhaled. And for the first time in months, it didn't catch halfway through. Because this time, this silence was mine. Funny how fast silence becomes sabotage. The coffee sat between us, untouched and slowly cooling. We were at that cafe on Spring in Monroe, the one he never liked because the chairs were metal and the lattes came with foam art. He used to call it Try Hard. Now, here he was, dressed in quiet desperation and business casual charm, acting like he picked the place out of preference instead of panic. I stirred my cup once, just to do something with my hands. Julian leaned in slightly, fingers laced together like he was praying. But he wasn't praying, he was pitching. I know things got complicated, he said, voice lower than usual. But you're smart, you'll figure it out. There it was. Not I need you, not I'm sorry. You're just smart. Like this was an exam I hadn't studied for yet, but probably would pass. Like he hadn't spent the last year erasing every trace of me from the family's memory while cashing in on the life I helped keep afloat. He looked older, not by age, by tension. His left thumb kept tapping against the ceramic edge of his espresso cup, a little too fast for someone just checking in. He was unraveling, but carefully, like if trying to loosen his own noose without admitting it's there. I've got the inspectors on my back, Dana. The buyers are skittish. There's a deadline, and if we can just clarify the zoning or maybe draft a counter. You want my signature again? I cut in. That silenced him. He gave a small laugh, meant to feel light, maybe even nostalgic. No, just advice. That's all. Advice. The word sat heavy. Advice is what you give to strangers or interns, not to your sister who saved the roof over your head, not to the architect whose drawings you stole and repackaged. He reached for his cup but didn't drink. Neither did I. There was a time I would have jumped in, pulled out my laptop, started a flow chart, got his name back on track. But that version of me was buried, somewhere between the funeral I wasn't invited to and the deed I signed with my mother coughing in the next room. Now I watched him talk himself into gratitude, into civility, into believing this table was level when the whole thing was leaning toward collapse. I offered nothing, not a nod, not a plan, not a rescue. Thanks for meeting, he said finally, voice thinner now. I smiled, polite, hollow. The kind of smile people give on elevators when they're done speaking, but the ride isn't over. We stood. His chair scraped louder than it should have. I watched him walk out first, and I stayed a few moments longer, staring at the untouched coffee between us. Proof that something was poured, that never should. He still found to fix what he broke. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address, no warning. just my name printed in clean, legal font. I opened it with the same care I used to open blueprint scrolls, fingertips sliding beneath the flap like it might bleed. Inside, the stamped copy of the deed sat stiff and precise. My name, my signature, and the clause Julian never read. Page 3, paragraph 6. The clause I insisted on when Mom was too tired to argue, and Julian was too sure he didn't need to read the fine print. A co-signatory's consent is required for any third-party transfer, permanent, irrevocable, and legally binding. For a long time, I just sat with it. The paper smelled faintly of toner, cold, metallic, like something printed on the bones of a truth finally unearthed. I had spent months wondering how to fight without coming in. This was how. Not with yelling, not with revenge fantasies, just with ink and silence. I filed the motion on a Monday. By Wednesday, his project was frozen. By Friday, the city posted a stop work notice to the family gate, right where he used to hang his ego like a flag. It was almost boring, how quickly it all started falling apart. The real estate investors pulled out first. Then the bank called. Then the city demanded a formal review of all his holdings. And just when he thought the storm had passed, a letter leaked to the local press. Anonymous tip concerning irregularities in ownership, forged plans, and familial coercion. I didn't even have to sign that one. Just clicked send. I imagined Julian pacing in his home office, phone glued to his hand, voice slipping from smug to sharp, wondering which thread got pulled first, wondering when the silence started unraveling him. I never showed up, never responded, never gloated. But I kept that deed, framed it in a slim black border, hung it in the back hallway of my apartment, not as a trophy, as proof. Proof that I had once been erased, then wrote myself back in. People think silence is surrender, but silence is a ledger. Every slight, every dismissal, every insult, violated, remember, you wait. You choose your moment. You press your finger down just once in the right place, and everything shifts. I didn't burn his house down. I just made sure the foundation collapsed under the weight of his own shortcuts. The deed was his undoing, but the signature was mine. Turns out, silence leaves fingerprints. The soil was dry when I first touched it, cracked like old skin, stubborn after years of neglect. I knelt slowly, knees pressing into the earth behind the side porch, just east of the house where the sun settled late and soft. This was the corner she always talked about. I want lilacs there, she'd whispered once, her voice thin from chemo but her eyes sharp as ever. Something that blooms late, so I know it's never too late. She never planted them, neither did I, until now. I didn't come back to reclaim the estate. I came for this one patch, 6 feet by 6, just to feel like everything could start over. My hands sank into the soil, damp underneath, alive underneath. I could hear birds chattering somewhere in the trees behind me, and the sound of wind brushing dry leaves across gravel. The house stood quiet in the distance, windows shuttered, empty. Julian hadn't come back, not since everything fell apart. Good. I pressed my thumb into the first hole, gently placed the young lilac root, and covered it like it was something sacred. The smell of the blossoms, faint and floral, lingered in the air, even though most hadn't bloomed yet. You always wanted color, I whispered, voice catching somewhere between apology and promise. It didn't matter that she wasn't here to see it. Not everything needs a witness to be real. I sat back on my heels, wiping dirt on the thighs of my jeans. My palms were streaked with earth, my nails ragged, but I felt still. Not proud, not triumphant, just still. There was no audience here, no press, no court, no Julian. Just me in the garden she never got. The wind picked up slightly, brushing against the leaves like fingers flipping through memory. I closed my eyes. For a moment I could almost hear her, laughing softly, saying, "You didn't inherit it, but you still built it." And maybe that's what this was all along. Not a fight to win, but a space to plant. I didn't need the house. I didn't need the name. I needed this patch of ground, these roots. This is quiet. I placed the last sprig in the center, pressing it down with care. I stayed for a while. Let the sun warm my shoulders. Let the silence stretch. Let the grief breathe. Then I stood, brushed off my knees, and left the garden behind me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Not everything needs a witness to be real. The brass door plate catches the morning light just right. Rios CO. It's etched in clean serif letters, fixed firmly to a glass door that opens with a soft click when I push it. It still smells like fresh paint and paper here. You can hear the echo of footsteps too easily, because we haven't filled it up with noise yet. Not chaos, not legacy, just space. Clean mine. 3 desks, 2 interns, 1 room. That's how I started. And for the first time, I don't feel like I'm proving something. I'm not reclaiming. I'm not waiting to be noticed. I built this. A small woman in the corner waves at me with a set of rolled-up blueprints in one hand and a coffee in the other. Site visit at 10, Dana. I nod, smile softly. I'll drive. I walk past the drafting table near the window. It's old, bought secondhand from a retired professor who said it deserved to keep dreaming. I run my fingers along its edge. My mother's voice floats up out of nowhere. Just because they didn't give it to you doesn't mean you can't take it. She was right. Julian hasn't called. Not since the papers were unsealed, not since the reporters asked about forged clauses and missing amendments. I never used his name, not once. But the truth is loud, even whispered. I sit down, open a clean file folder. My initials are stamped in the corner of the page. I stare at them longer than I mean to. There was a time I would have signed my name small, like I was afraid it took up too much room. Not anymore. They needed my signature, but not my name. Now, both are mine. I lean back, exhale. It's strange how power doesn't feel like thunder. It feels like walking into a room that belongs to you. It feels like the silence you chose. It feels like a desk with your nameplate, no permission, no apology. Somewhere in the background, the printer hums. A pencil clinks onto a tile. Nothing cinematic, just life. Steady, ongoing. I think about that old house sometimes, the garden, the lilacs. I left them behind without bitterness. I didn't win a war, I ended a pattern. Legacy isn't what they leave. It's what you build when no one gives you anything. I glance at the door again, at the gold plate gleaming in the sunlight. Rios Capo. Then I look back at the first line of a new plan. Have you ever watched someone erase you, only to realize you were never written in pencil?